Bubonic Plague likely already present in Los Angeles, according to Dr. Drew. He also went on to say that the city, the public health in Los Angeles is in a complete breakdown, and no city on earth should tolerate this. But the question is, why is this happening? California has a Democratic supermajority. You'd think they could get on one track to solve these problems. But no, not only is there filth throughout the streets, rampant disease, there are rat infestations with fleas spreading these diseases. They have a serious homelessness problem as well. And apparently they failed to pass a law, a housing bill, to actually help many of these homeless people. Now, in a New York Times column that I covered about a week ago, Farhad Manjoo says, blame wealthy liberals. And the reason for it is, it's a supermajority. Why can't they get their act together and actually solve these problems? It's a very, very interesting issue. But first, let's read about what's going on with bubonic plague, because this may be the most alarming bit of information. But I also want to talk about, it feels like almost like a dark age is coming. With the decline of science, I should say, the rise of science denialism, this weird ideology, the culture wars escalation, it just feels like things are getting crazy. And when you even have a Democratic supermajority unable to solve these problems, what is happening? Now, I don't want to be alarmist, but we'll read through some stuff. But before we get started, go to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. There are multiple options for donating, including cryptocurrency and a physical address. But of course, like and comment on the video. The engagement really, really helps. And share the link if you really want to support the video, and subscribe if you have not already and you want more videos like this. According to the Daily Wire, citing Dr. Drew, they say Los Angeles is going down the drain. The city, with a population topping 4 million and a broader metropolitan area with many millions more, is awash in massive problems, overcrowding, lack of housing, and high demand for free services among them. But other far more serious problems are lurking, Dr. Drew Pinsky said on Thursday. We have a complete breakdown of the basic needs of civilization in Los Angeles right now, Pinsky told Fox News host Laura Ingraham. We have the three prongs of airborne disease. Tuberculosis is exploding, rodent-borne. We are one of the only cities in the country that doesn't have a rodent control program, and sanitation has broken down. Pinsky said bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, a pandemic that killed off millions in the 14th century, is likely already present in Los Angeles. The plague is spread by infected fleas and exposure to bodily fluids from a dead plague-infected animal, with the bacteria entering through the skin and traveling to the lymph nodes. Typhus, which broke out in the city last year, will likely return, Pinsky said. Already, a Los Angeles police officer has contracted typhoid fever, which infects fewer than 350 Americans per year. The various types of typhus are caused by a bacterial infection and spread by body lice, chiggers, or fleas. In the 1600s, the disease decimated Germany. This is unbelievable. I can't believe I live in a city where this is not third world. This is medieval, Pinsky said, according to Fox News. Third world countries are insulted if they are accused of being like this. No city on earth tolerates this. The entire population is at risk. Pinsky said the city simply can't handle the demand for services, noting that many homeless are mentally ill and don't want to accept housing. The government is somehow insisting that housing is the problem, when in fact we have chronic mental illness, we have addiction, we have people who don't want to leave the streets. They literally won't take the housing if we give it to them, and that's the population that's vulnerable and is going to get so ill this summer, it scares me for their well-being. I have personal experience in this regard. I worked for a homeless shelter back when I was a nonprofit director. And one of the problems we saw was that young people did not want to go to shelters. They prefer to be on the streets. They want to sleep under bridges in these areas. So even when you would pull up and offer them resources and say, free room and board, no questions asked, they'd say no. Sometimes they would come, clean up, or take something, and then skip out immediately. So it's true, Pinsky's right. Even if you offer them housing, they won't accept it. Now, I can't offer you a reason as to why they can't solve these problems. Many people point to the fact that it's a Democratic supermajority. Like I showed you that the opinion piece blames wealthy liberals. There are other op-eds saying the exact same thing. Blame the Democrats for this. They're the ones in charge. Is it because they're Democrats? Is it because of their policies? I'm not going that far. What I can say is whatever it is they're espousing is not what they're doing. They're not helping people, and disease is getting worse. The famed doctor also said California cities are suffering after allowing thousands of illegal aliens to flow in. He said the liberal politicians running most cities are disgustingly negligent. Homelessness is also exploding in San Francisco, the home district of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a Democrat. And they also have to bring on, I kid you not, a poop patrol because there is so much feces littered throughout the streets of San Francisco. What is going on in California? He says a federal count shows the number of homeless people increased by double-digit percentages in 3 San Francisco Bay Area counties over 2 years as the region struggled to tackle the growing problem, including 17% in San Francisco and 43% in the county that includes Oakland. That's according to the Associated Press. Meanwhile, a new map compiled by the group Open the Books titled 2011 to 2019 San Francisco Human Waste Reportings. My God. Features a little pin, appropriately brown, showing where city residents have reported human feces. From the looks of the map, the entire city has been covered in poop. Now, it's funny, we say poop, but really, what do we want to say when we try and keep this discourse, clean and professional? It's silly. Feces? Look at this. Okay, so for those listening on the podcast, you can't see this map, but I kid you not, in the downtown area of San Francisco, it is just jet black, right? There are so many nodes showing an instance of poop in the streets that it's just become a mass of black. Like someone just took paintbrush and just scribbled black because they're all mashed so tightly together. There is you can't see anything. It's covering literally all of San Francisco. They're saying from the looks of the map, the entire city has been covered in poop. This is a tweet from Lachlan Marque who says, they mapped out every report of human feces on the streets of San Francisco. At some point, something needs to be done. What is Nancy Pelosi? This is her district, apparently. What is she doing to solve these problems? And I got to say, if this is what her home district looks like, why should we listen to anything she has to say in terms of policy? Because clearly something is not working where she comes from. They go on to say, quote from Forbes, since 2008, over 23,800 cases of human waste were reported in the heart of San Fran. There were 13 reports of human feces in front of City Hall, 17 events at the U.S. Marshal's Office, and 67 reports at the Tenderloin Police Station on Eddy Street. Even the biggest companies that call San Francisco home have not been spared. The largest concentration of complaints was in the area of Market Street, where the headquarters of companies such as Twitter and Uber are located. Nearly 100 markers were clustered along the block that surrounds City Hall. What an insane display of inequality. These uber elite far left corporations, multinational, massive billion-dollar corporations, the Democratic politicians, and this is what they're living in. They're living in their ivory towers while their streets are littered with feces, and Dr. Drew Pinsky is concerned. He believes bubonic plague is already coming back. I don't care about politics in this regard. Let's just do something about this insane nightmare. Now, of course, one of the things that's been highlighted, this story from the LA Times, I don't know if this is LA trying to protect itself, defend itself. They're blaming climate change. They say climate change could bring bubonic plague back to LA. Longer, hotter weather patterns are extending the breeding season of rats and rodents, leading to a steep increase in their numbers in places like LA. New York and Houston, over the last decade, urban rat populations are up 15 to 20% worldwide. Okay, so here's the thing. People talk about climate change, but I'd posit this. If climate change really will bring about some bubonic plague, and that wipes out a massive amount of human beings, then that's kind of course correcting for the planet, wouldn't you think? It's kind of like the Earth, just these things evolve. Humans produce too much CO2, methane, etc. Planet heats up, spreads more disease more rapidly, increases, water levels, whatever. Humans get wiped out, things kind of calm back down. There was a funny point made. I don't know if you've seen Avengers Endgame, but one of the points, I can't remember where this was brought up. It may have been in the movie, that since Thanos wiped out half the population, then the ecosystem healed dramatically because humans were half gone. Kind of Thanos' point, right? So I do want to point out that Dr. Drew also said that LA public health is in complete breakdown and no city on earth tolerates this. This story from Fox News, it's actually much less comprehensive. But he says we have a complete breakdown of the basic needs of civilization. The question is, why? Why is this? Well, I reported this a while ago in a video I made about Democrats being hypocritical, citing this man Farhad Manjoo in the New York Times. So again, while I can certainly have my opinion, I don't pull these opinions out of thin air. I don't make videos about these things just because I'm trying to frame something a certain way. Quite literally, I saw this story and said, wow. And then a story came out saying Bubonic Plague might be back in LA. And I said, maybe that's a problem that's going to affect 13 million people that we should probably talk about and figure out why it's happening. Okay? Now, he says, Farhad, he blames the wealthy liberals that abandon their progressive values in their own backyards. But we also have this story. This is from Curbed Los Angeles saying, the May massacre of California's housing bills. Democrats hold a supermajority, but failed to exercise any of their power to fix the housing crisis. I will tell you why this is an issue. Sure, there's a rat problem. Rats have fleas. These are spreading disease. Warmer, longer seasons, whatever. If you can't get a housing situation solved for these homeless people or do something about this, this is going to spread bubonic plague, assuming it exists, if you take Pinsky's word for it. Typhus, typhoid fever, already here. There was already an outbreak. You got a bunch of people living on the streets, they're going to get sick, and that's going to start infecting people who aren't homeless. So first, the one thing you got to do, for the love of God, get rid of the rats, okay? Now, it's not all bad news. This story from NBC4, Los Angeles, LA cracks down to clean up rat-infested, garbage-filled street. It's only one street, but hey, it's not all bad news. They say, what's being done to keep trash and disease-carrying rats out of an alley between downtown LA's fashion and produce districts? I can't say this is going to be a major solution for all of LA. It's one alleyway, but at least it's something, okay? I don't want to be waving a sign saying the end is nigh. There's something else here I want to make sure I cover. I don't think this is effective. Is this going to do anything? I mean, it's good you're keeping the rats away from the produce district. My God. If you want to talk about how to spread disease, that'll do it. But why does LA not have a rat patrol? Seriously, San Francisco actually has a group of people. It was reported in one story. They get paid $184,000 a year to do poop patrol. That's how bad it is in San Francisco. I do want to stress, I always want to make sure I clarify this as well. The weather is really nice in California. It definitely attracts people. But New York City has more homeless people, according to a Forbes report I covered last week. More homeless people in New York than LA. So it's not weather. Weather is not the reason that LA has these problems. While I can certainly agree with Pinsky that in my experience working for these shelters and these nonprofits, homeless people don't want to take shelter. It doesn't mean there's no solution. It means something needs to be done and you're not doing it. How we're at a point where Los Angeles, one of the biggest, urban jurisdictions, the county, is rife with disease and trash and rats and homelessness, and it's not being solved. It blows my mind. Maybe Farhad for the New York Times is right. These wealthy liberals do not actually hold the values they claim to espouse. Nancy Pelosi, what is she doing? Her home district is covered in human waste. All of this is really scary to me when we hear about literally bubonic plague being possible because of the rats. And it's not just the hyperbole from someone like Drew Pinsky. It's literally a concern written in the LA Times that climate change could bring bubonic plague back to LA. And it's not just Dr. Drew saying this. I reported this in a video like 2 weeks ago that there was a fear bubonic plague could be in LA right now. And now Drew feels the same way. And they're even reporting climate change could be a factor in this. We're not just playing with hyperbole right now. There's a serious concern that bubonic plague is going to come back. So those are the core issues I want to make sure I talk about. I don't know what the solution is. I'm not going to pretend to be an urban planning and expert or anything like that. What I can say is how LA and San Francisco are dealing with these issues and other cities aren't. How they don't have a way to deal with rats. They're only dealing with one street, apparently. It's mind-blowing. But I will stress, I hear about these things and I have a fear that with the rise and the escalation in the culture war, we're really moving towards a dangerous future and maybe some kind of dark age. Now, what a dark age is, I don't necessarily know because people have different definitions based on their ideology. But I think the spread of disease, the breakdown of social cohesion, and the denial of science, the rise of zealotry and dogma. And we certainly see it. This is a story from just a couple days ago. Self-censorship on campus is bad for science. Amid heightened tensions on college campuses, well-established scientific ideas are suddenly meeting with stiff political resistance. In this story, Luana Moroja talks about how students are denying established biology in favor of social justice. So I think about where this brings us. This wasn't the first time we heard this. This is a story from January of 2018. The left is also guilty of unscientific dogma. Yep. It's been getting worse. The left denying science. I'm not going to act like the right doesn't. Everybody denies their science in certain ways. Not everyone on the left and not everyone on the right, but they have their factions and they have certain things they deny. I'm not trying to say that science is always right. Quite the contrary. Science is actually typically wrong, and that's what makes it work. You slowly improve your knowledge. There are people, it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter if you're conservative or liberal. There are anti-science people, and they're all over the place, and they're becoming more prominent. What's scary to me is the left, they're in universities, and they're impeding science while claiming to support it. They're calling biology unscientific. And then we have the rampant spread of disease. We have some people blaming the Democrats. In this one story, the housing crisis, Democrats hold a supermajority. They failed to exercise any of their power to fix the housing crisis. Blame the Democrats there. That's an opinion piece from Alyssa Walker. We have the New York Times. It's not I don't think it's a conservative, right-wing, or necessarily a partisan thing to say the Democrats do not have a handle on these issues, and there is a rising faction of people who deny science, and this stuff freaks me out. It does. I don't know what else to say. I think it's not going to improve. I have little hope that these problems will be solved. It kind of feels like dominoes falling over. Just over time, these things happen this way. And so long as people can't see beyond their personal interests, they're unwilling to plant a tree whose shade they know they will never sit in, then it all just falls down. Who's going to deal with the rats and why should they? I bet they just leave. Someone's going to be in LA and say, well, I'll just move. And where does this bring us? It brings us to an era where social cohesion breaks down. And then we end up in a kind of dark age where different factions have fractured in different areas. I don't know necessarily what that means. I'm not trying to say like the U.S. will no longer exist or something. No, it just means that certain institutions are no longer cooperating. We're seeing the New York Times telling their reporters not to appear on CNN and MSNBC. And I'm like, that's a breakdown to an extreme degree. I'll leave it there. I don't want to ramble too much and get into a bunch of other issues, but it really does feel like this is another piece, another straw on the camel's back. And eventually that camel's going to collapse under that weight. And then where are we? I don't know. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. We'll keep the conversation going. If you're listening on the podcast, leave a review. Let me know what you think. And I will have more segments coming up on my second channel, youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m. For those listening on the podcast, again, the arrangement may be different. But thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all next time.